Now I'm going to share my screen and we start a revision. Today we will review on L4M4. This is a very long module and it has very low rate of success because it is very long and some part of knowledge is not very familiar with common procurement professionals. But I will help you to focus on few areas that you should know before sitting the exam. And unlike other modules, in this module, I approach from my own division of the study guide, not directly from the chapters of the book. I will divide the L4M4 into three groups. The L4M4 knowledge can be divided into three groups. First, the knowledge regarding sourcing process. We will talk about something like IFQ, IFP, IFI, ITT, then PQQ, other things like quality assurance or quality score, supplier evaluation, bid evaluation, and most importantly, financial analysis. The second part of L4M4 will be on international sourcing, and on this we focus on three things. First, about the documentation. Second, the Incoterm, and the third is about the how to manage the fluctuation of currency and payment methods. Finally, L4M4 has a dedicated chapter on ethical and responsible sourcing. About this, we focus on a few things of ethical method, like bribery, like human rights, like conflict interest, and modern slavery. Here also, we also look at other topic like how to audit and how to and the triple bottom line in procurement and supply. First, we will look at the sourcing process. This topic is very familiar to students, and I will try my best to recap the knowledge. Sourcing process has the most number of questions in the L4M4 exam. So if you understand well all these knowledge, you can be confident to pass the exam. Regarding sourcing process, I list some topic like the use of project matrix. What about project matrix? We will see the question on the different type of purchase, and they will ask you about what category, what quadrant of project matrix it will fall into. I believe that this type of question is very familiar to you, and especially project matrix is repeatedly mentioned throughout the L4M4, and other level 4 modules. The second group, the second area I need to highlight here is outsourcing. Regarding outsourcing, the question tend to focus on the advantage and disadvantage of outsourcing. You can see the answer like loss control of the process or leveraging the economy of scale, etc. And regarding outsourcing, we will focus on the benefit and the risk of outsourcing. So this type of question is not too hard, and it's very straightforward and intuitive and very intuitive. I believe that you can solve the question regarding outsourcing with ease. The third topic here is on the data of the market. As you can remember from previous module like L4M4, we have two type of data. Two type data. First is primary and second is secondary data. And regarding this topic, we have the question like what is the source, what are the sources of primary and secondary data. It's also very intuitive and easy for you. But if you want me to remind, I would say that primary data is the data that you collect directly from the source. Primary data is the data that you collect directly from the sources, like the quotation from suppliers or the catalog from your suppliers. And secondary data is the data that you collect from a third party that they collect and analyze the raw data, and they sell them to you, or they publish it for free, like the report from a journal, or the report of the government about the industry. Next, we will see on when to use IQ or ITT. This question is very common. And also, we also see the question on advantage and disadvantage of IQ as well as ITT. All of you are working as procurement professionals, so this type of question will be very intuitive to you, because IQ and ITT is a very basic skill for procurement. So I hope that you can solve this question with ease. We should focus on this thing here. When to use open, restricted, or negotiate tendering. About this topic, I want to note that there are also a question on what is the distinctive feature of open, restricted, or negotiated tender. As you know, in open tendering, we advertise our need, and every tenderer, every supplier can reply with their offer. In restricted tendering, instead, we advertise, and not every tender can be answer, but they must be qualified to before submitting their bids. And negotiated that tender is like some process like request for proposal. We don't exactly know the requirement for our needs, and we need the input from the supplier. And in this process, while we advertise our needs in performance specification, and when the supplier replies, they will submit their proposal. And before that, we need to qualify them before we negotiate individually with them to select the best option for our project, and then we run a tender on the selected options. And based on those features, we have some questions. SIP offers some question on the when to use open, restricted, or negotiated tender. For example, they give you some scenario and ask you which type of tender is the most appropriate. or they ask you some scenario and the character in that scenario is using open or restricted tenoring, and they ask you whether that action is correct or appropriate. And furthermore, they ask you about directly like when we should use open or restricted tenoring, and they give you some option like some long option like when we have few supplier, when we have many supplier, when we have correct, when we have the performance specification, when the customer service should be guaranteed, etc. And you should select the most appropriate option. This type question is quite common in the exam, and I hope that after my revision, you can visit your study guide and review the session here, review the areas here. Then and practice with some questions from our enemy set. And finally, regarding sourcing process, I want to highlight a topic here, the use of re-qualification questionnaire and weighted score. When we should use weighted score, for example, we should use weighted score when we have many criteria to assess the offer from different suppliers. For example, I am purchasing some kind of engine from the market, and regarding the engine, this is not a very simple piece of machine. So instead of only about price, I had to have some kind of other criteria like the supply capacity, or the quality, or the quality assurance from the supplier. So when we have multiple criteria for selection, we should use weighted score. But on the other hand, when we only have when the product is highly standardized, so when the product is highly standardized, so we only should use price as the sole criteria for selection. For example, we purchasing some kind of pen or paper or other type of stationery for our office. They are very simple and standardized items. So we should not use weighted score to avoid waste of energy and time. All right, so those are a very quick recap on this topic. This topic, where I say that a very quick recap, but this topic has quite enormous number of questions in L4M4 exam. Sometimes the question has scenario, as you know, and when question has scenario, it tends to be very confusing. So my advice here is that you should skip any confusing question and answer them later when you have time to solve them. And when we have a very long scenario, you should understand the concept, the area they want to ask before selecting the options. We move on other areas of focus here. About sourcing process, I only recap on this area. I will recap on these areas, and we move on other topic like financial analysis. Sorry, the display is. we're talking about financial analysis. As you know, the number of questions on financial analysis, like the ratio, like the credit score, is quite common in F4M4. Here I restructure the area knowledge, and we should come from the importance of financial analysis. Let's come back to the sourcing process. When we talk about financial analysis, we are talking about it in the context of selecting the right supplier for our project. Sorry, I need to take a cup of water. It's very dry here. Okay, let's come back to our revision. I'm saying that when we are talking about financial analysis, we should put it in the context of supplier selection. And why we should analyze, and when and why we should analyze the financial situation of the supplier here. We analyze the financial situation of the supplier when we are selecting the supplier for the restricted tendering, and for further clarification, financial analysis is often used in is often asked in PQQ, and when we are pre-qualifying the suppliers before letting them offer the tender or quotation. So why we should analyze the financial here? According to SIP, the supply, we are professional in procurement, and our job is to manage the supply base of the company. And if the supplier has poor financial situation, they may disrupt the supply, and our company may be in trouble when the supply is disrupted. So we should select the supplier with a robust financial situation, robust financial has financial robustness. And when the supplier has poor financial situation, they will likely to lead to poor quality, late delivery, or asking for quicker cash flow, quicker payment, and therefore which is impacted on the budget and the plan of the buying organization, etc. That's why we should analyze the financial here. And in financial analysis, we have two methods. First is taking the report, taking the credit score from the third party, like credit rating agency. Credit by default in many countries you can see. Hello? Seems like my internet connection is unstable. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you see my screen? Zoom has some notification on unstable connection. All right. I don't know why my connection is often very good at this time. Okay, let the internet connection is to be stabilized. Okay, that's the problem. I should check my connection. Microphone is good. Is there any difficulty in listening to my voice now? Okay, that's good. Let's come back to the lesson. Okay, that's good. Two people, at least two people here can hear my voice. Let's come back to the revision. I'm saying that we have two methods to analyze the financial situation of the supplier. First, we can retrieve a report from third party like a credit rating agency, and second, we can ourselves analyze the situation by taking the financial statement from the suppliers. About credit score, it is analyzed by a third party like a credit rating agency, and not every country has this type of agency. But in global market, there are some very dominant player in this regarding this business, and we can purchase their report on the supplier. But of course, the report is often very expensive. But if our project is important, it's worth the try. Regarding credit score, the question here tend to be focused on their advantage and disadvantage. And second, they ask you about the content. What credit score can tell you about the supplier? As you know, credit score is the rating on the ability to pay their debt. And credit score is a function of many determinant like the payment history or the ability to pay the debt, like whether do they have the access to take the mortgage from the bank, or do they have the stable payment history, or do they repay their debt on time. And besides risk score, we have another method of analyzing the financial situation of the supplier. It is taking the statement from the supplier to analyze the some financial ratio. In financial statement, we have three documents. The first is income statement. This document will tell you about the revenue and the cost of the different type costs of the supplier. Second is the balance sheet. Balance sheet will tell you about the assets and the financing, basic financing of the supplier, like what is their equity and what is their debt. And finally, we have statement on cash flow, or how much cash flow in and flow out of the supplier account. The question here tends to focus on the knowledge of different index in different indexes within the statement. For example, what can we know from income statement? Income statement has the report on revenue and costs like direct costs, cost of goods sold, and operating costs like the salary, administrative, and depreciation, amortization, and interest that need to pay within that need to be paid within this year. So from income statement, we can know the net profit, gross profit, and operating profit, the EBITDA or the EBIT of a company. And from balance sheet, you can see that they analyze the assets of the company at the time of the year. And at that time, we can see that they have this much assets, this much debt, and other things. So from balance sheet, we can tell about the current ratio or the gearing ratio. Also, about SIP question, there are some question on financial analysis, like using ratio analysis. SIP tend to focus on majorly three groups. I need to highlight here. They focus on three groups. Besides this, we also focus on profit ratio. They focus on profit ratio like gross profit margin or net profit margin. I'm sharing my screen. Is it dark now? Is it black now? Okay, that's good. I'm saying that regarding the question here, in ratio analysis, we have some focus on profit ratio, liquidity, and gearing ratio. They tend to ask you about the formula of this ratio. In profit ratio, we should know about gross profit and net profit. Regarding liquidity ratio, we should say about the current ratio and quick acid test. And gearing ratio, we have some formula, but most importantly, you understand the nature of gearing ratio. Gearing ratio is measuring the balance between assets and debt within an organization. We can divide the debt on the total assets, or we can divide the equity on the total debt. Or we can only see the long-term debt on. We can see the result between the ratio between the long-term debt and the short-term assets. Also, about this, we also have a ratio that it has not been mentioned in the study guide. It is working capital. I should make it in a new slide. Working capital is the term for the result between current assets and current liability. It indicates how much resource you can mobilize when we analyze the activities of our company. When we have much working capital, you have ability to invest or to operate or to upgrade your operations. But when we lack working capital, it indicates that we are having trouble to recover, to pay the debt. So in the study guide, they don't mention capital, but in the exam they may ask you about the formula of working capital. Okay, that's a very quick recap on financial analysis, and it should be put on the context of supplier selection. Normally, SIP doesn't ask very hard on this topic, but and if you prepare well for the exam, the chance of passing is very high. But L4M4 has very low pass rate. According to my memory, the last time in the last exam in May and in March, the pass rate for L4M4 is 65%. It indicates that the module is not very hard, but it is very long and it has many things to learn. So students have difficulties in learning them. In this revision, I try my best to highlight the most important part of the exam, the most important areas of knowledge. And besides this knowledge, we see here, they may ask you some other knowledge like the use of standard within server selection, like what is the definition or which error is applied by ISO 9001. What is the matter with the technical issue today? Is it dark now? Yeah. What you can see on the screen now? I don't put the quality issue on the screen, but only a financial analysis. So don't worry about that. I'm saying that there are some other errors that they could ask you, like the application of ISO 9001 or ISO 14001. Yeah, I don't put other topic here, but if you want to see, I will put a new topic. I will make a new slide. Okay, these are some topics I can remember from the previous exams. You should also look at this topic, like the application of ISO standard like 9001 or 14001, and total quality management. They can ask you uh, what can be the indicator of supplier commitment on quality. So all of these are my experience from previous exams by both by me and other students regarding L4M4. We move on at other areas of knowledge like international sourcing and ethical and responsible sourcing. On international sourcing, as I said from the beginning of the class, we focus on three things. First is about the documentation for sourcing. Second is about the use of Incoterms, and the third about the payment and fluctuation and the management of currency fluctuation. Okay, sorry, I need to review here. I also remember that there's another topic here is commodity market. There are some questions on commodity market. They ask you about the fluctuation of the commodity price, and on commodity, you should know that we have commodity market for the basic merchandise like oil, crude oil, like the wheat, corn, or steel. They are basic commodity or basic merchandise. So we have a centralized market for those goods, and their price is very fluctuating based on supply and demand. In the exam, they may ask you the factors or the factors that may increase or decrease the price of commodity in the market. Okay, come back to international sourcing. That's it. We have three areas to focus. First, about the documentation of the documentation of import and export. Second, we look at Incoterms, and the third we look at the payment and the currency. Regarding documentation, if you work as procurement, sometimes you may purchase your product service from overseas, and if you purchase some kind of product, when we importing them to our country, we may have some kind of procedure for custom clearance. Sorry, custom clearance. And for this, regarding this purpose, we have some kind of document that almost every country will require. There are some important document here. First, I want to talk about the bill entry. The bill entry is a document that you submit to your custom agency, and you will tell them what type of goods you are importing and what is their HS code. HS code. HS is abbreviation for harmonized system, and it is a internationally standardized code for goods and merchandise. And when we import some kind of goods, we need to submit the bill entry to the custom agency, and they will ask you to clarify the type of goods, the country origin, the price on the invoice, so that they can calculate their import or export tax. Bill entry is some kind of document for custom clearance, and I remember that there is a question on what kind of document that help you to import something. Yeah, so you may see this type of question, and also note that bill entry is not mentioned in the study guide, but it can be asked in the exam. So you may have a quick Google search on in the internet and look at what the bill entries is. The second document I want to talk here is extremely important, the bill listing. The bill listing essentially is the contract between the between the seller and the shipper and the deliverer and the shipping company. Bill listing indicate the type of goods and the quantity of goods and the destination, the place of departure and the destination. Hello? When you see the slide, the screen on documentation, what is happening here? Any other idea? I want to check that other participants is seeing documentation slide. So Jessica, can you check your internet connection? It's because of your connection, not from my side. Let's come back to bill listing. This is a very important document in import and export. Essentially, it's the contract or the legal document between the buyer or the seller with the shipping companies. And within bill listing, there are some few of information that you often see. First is the place of destination and the place of origin. The place of origin, which port it is importing from and which port is exporting. Second, you may see the type of goods, the quantity, and other term and condition, and the information on the contact of the buyer, of the seller, and of the shipping company, and some other information like the instruction of the buyer or the seller, like at the decision, of some kind of bank to ensure the payment of the batch. Building acting as two things. First, it is a legal document for the contract between the buyer and seller and the shipping company. Second, it is acting as the proof of title of goods in import and export. In the exam, they ask you what are the roles of bill listing, and you can select to answer. Like first, it is the legal document, it is a contract, and second, it is a title of goods. Why bill listing is the proof of title of goods? it is because of trade custom worldwide, global of international trade custom. when we export something, we sign the contract with the shipping company, and the shipping company deliver it to the importing port. I think I make it a new slide. We're ready to see more clarification. Why this? Because when we signing the contract with the shipping company, they receive and deliver the goods to the destination port. And because on the bill heading, it shows the buyer, the seller, it shows the name of the buyer and the seller. So it indicates that they are the rightful owner of the goods. So in many cases, bill heading is acting as the proof of title. When we have bill heading, you can ask the port manager. You can ask the port manager to handle you the goods that is still placed on the port dock. Okay, building is very important, and it had multiple questions here. Oftenly, it is about the role of building. You may see that it has two roles. First is the document, sorry, a legal document for contract, and second, it is the proof of title of the good, the proof of ownership of the goods. And we may see other type of documentation here, but it play less important role. For example, we see the packing list. Essentially, the packing list is the just a document that show the quantity of the goods within a container. It only shows the type of goods and its quantity, not very specific. Certificate of origin is the document that proves that these goods those goods are coming from a country, and they may have some kind of tax exempt because the two countries has some kind of free trade agreement, and they say that if the goods come from one of the country, they will be tax exemption, they will be entitled to tax exemption. So certificate of origin is important when we have the tax advantage here. Import and export permit is some kind of document that we rarely see because in a country they limit the import and export of some kind of good by setting the quota. By setting quota. By setting some kind of quota, and by setting some kind of import or export permit. Import and export permit is only available to some kind of goods like the weapons. We often don't trade the weapons, but this type of good is very special and requires special treatment. And only company with import or export permit of weapons can do that. Not everyone can import or export weapons or some kind of rare material or dangerous chemical. Contract and purchase order or PO can be asked during the custom clearance to show that there are transaction between the buyer and the supplier. Finally, the commercial invoice is a must worldwide, is a requirement worldwide because it shows the value. It shows the value of the goods, and it will be the base to calculate the tax regarding import and export. In the exam, they tend to focus on P-entry, P-rating, and certificate of origin. Otherwise, I introduce other document here so that you can learn and apply to your day-to-day work. I also remember a question on commercial invoice. So we should focus on bill entry, bill rating, certificate of origin, and commercial invoice. During the exam, they may have some question on the purpose of setting tax, of setting duty, of setting tariff on the import or export of the goods. So what is the purpose of setting such protection on the import or export? So the answer can vary. It can be on the protection of domestic industry, or it can be some side of protection vision, or some kind of policy of the government. There only a question about this. So in the study guide, you may see some information about this question. So I hope that you can open it in chapter 3 and study it. Sorry, it should be about here. The second part of international sourcing is about Incoterm. Regarding Incoterm, the question is not very too difficult. It's not very difficult for the student. The question tends the group of Incoterm, and remember that because SIP wrote the study guide in 2019, so they still use Incoterm 2010, but currently we had Incoterms 2020, so some knowledge is outdated, but it's not very some kind of very major update. There are some only small adjustment on Incoterm. Regarding the question in the exam on Incoterm, we have the question on the different groups of Incoterm like E, F, C, and D. You see that there are 12 Incoterms, and they can be categorized in E, F, C, and D groups. I will show you the graph of Incoterm. Sorry, my internet connection today is very glitchy. This is a word chart of Incoterm from ICC, from the publisher of Incoterm. You may see that we have 12 Incoterm with seven Incoterm for any modes of transport, and 4 Incoterm for only waterway transport. There are 4 groups of Incoterm. Can be categorized as with the letter like E, F. E group only has X work. F group has free carrier FCA, and free alongside ship FAS, and free on board FOB. Those are 3 Incoterm within F group. C group has CPT. CIP, CFR, and CIF. And we have also have EFCND, DIP, DPU, and DDP. Actually, really, connection is unstable. Okay, let's come back. Regarding D group, there is an update from Incoterm 2020. Instead of in Incoterm 2010, instead of DAT, we have DPU. I need some type pen here. In Incoterm 2010, we have the group, the Incoterm name is DAT, which is the word terminal. Delivered terminal. This is full name, and in Incoterm 2020, it is replaced by DPU. DAT is replaced by DPU in Incoterm 2020. And regarding the question of Incoterm, we have some kind of question like first they're asking about the group of Incoterm like EFCND, EFCND. And second, they may have question on the full name of the Incoterm, like what is the full name of DDP? And it actually there are some rule to remember it. For example, always in group D, we always start with the word delivered, delivered at place, delivered at place unloaded, or delivered duty paid. C group always have the start with carriage. C stand for carriage paid to, carriage and insurance paid to. Sorry, actually C group where there are two kinds. First is carriage and second is cost. On CFR, which is cost and freight, and CF is cost, insurance, and freight. And in F group, we always start with free carrier, free alongside ship, and free on board. So that's some trick for remembering the name, the full name of the relevant Incoterm. Let's come back to my slide. Besides the groups and the name, we also have question on the most risk or least risk for supplier and buyer. The type Incoterm that had highest level risk or the lowest level risk. On this question, you only just to remember two things, two terms, the X work, EXW, and DDP, delivered duty paid. X work is very favorable for the supplier because the buyer must come to the place of the supplier and take the goods. While in DDP, the supplier do everything before deliver to the buyer. Also, though I don't remember any question on the transfer grid within each Incoterm, but you should have the Incoterm board chart to learn the transfer risk and the feature of each Incoterm. And the Incoterm is very helpful for you if you frequently purchase from overseas. So if you are looking at import and export agent, so you should download a version of Incoterm. It can be found on the website of ICC. ICC. Which is, I need to go now. What's this ICC? Okay, as can be Cricket Association. Yeah, this one ICC, International Chamber of Commerce, which is the website ICC is iccwbo.org. I will send a link to the chat box. You can search for Incoterm and download the document from this website. Okay, that's my revision on Incoterms. And finally, we move to the payment and the currency. Regarding payment and currency, the most common question is regard on exchange rate and how to manage the fluctuation of currency. On this question, they may ask you about scenario where we have the buyer and supplier from different country, and the buyer is concerning about the fluctuation. What method they can do to minimize the risk? They may use they may indicate that the supplier should quote all the price in their home currency like USD or Brit or G or the pound or the British pound and sterling. Or they may use some kind of currency hedging like signing the swap contract or the forward contract with the bank to purchase foreign currency. Also, you may see some question on the risk of some kind of the different type of payment method like letter credit or side wrap, term wrap, or open the account and cash in advance. But I rarely see this type of question. So that's all. That's all of the topic that we can review on international sourcing. Finally, we have an important topic on ethical and responsible sourcing. The topic is quite big and has multiple questions. And the question tend to be more on scenario. And we should select the best reaction to some scenario. And sometimes it will be on the application of relevant ISO standard as well as other international convention on bribery and human rights. On preventing corruption, we may see some scenario like regarding the gift and hospitality. What we should react to gift and hospitality. We should we receive it, or we should accept it, or we should or we should reject and report to the to our supervisor. And there are some question on conflict of interest. You may work as some kind of role as a buyer or the purchasing or the purchaser within an organization, and the supplier is inviting you to a restaurant to discuss about the business. Should we accept that invitation, or should we reject it, and should we report it to the supervisor? So that kind of question is very common in the exam. So I hope that you are a professional that who has good knowledge of ethical and responsible sourcing. Also, there are some questions on issue like human rights and modern slavery. The question tend to be on what rights is protected in the scenario, or what is the indication? Sorry, what is the indicator of modern slavery, or what should we do when we have some supplier who has the allegation of having modern slavery, of forced labor in their workforce. The answer should be on the audit, or the buyer should establish some kind of hotline to prevent these practice. And finally, there are some questions on criteria for selecting the most responsible supplier, like what KPI we should use to support the social or environmental criteria. And here I want to add some new question here. There are a question on ISO standard, on corruption, on anti-corruption, anti-bribery system. Try to search on Google these standards, and they may ask you this. So prepare for the exam by search on Google about this. I will not spoil the results. You should search by yourself and try to remember it. Okay, that's all that I can help you to review. And as you know, we provide this revision for free. And if you want to support us, please purchase our practice questions on Udemy. And we are currently offering new coupon so that you can purchase it with only $9.99. $9.29. Sorry, 99. $9.20. Sorry, $9.99. If you apply the coupon code, no excuses. So all cap. So we will get the lowest price possible. Now my revision end. And if you have any question, please raise your hand or put it in the chat. No, we don't need to know all of ISO standard. We only need to remember some key standard like 9,001, 14,001, 27,001. Sorry, 27,000, 22,000. Yeah, and also like Punam put in the chat box 37,001. Of course, we should remember this 5 1. Thank you, Punam, for searching and answering my question. Is there any other concern or question on the exam of L4M4? Okay, Ivy, do you want to turn on the your microphone?
Hi, Daniel.
Hi, Ivy.
How are you?
Good.
Daniel, I wanted to ask, when it comes to the Incoterms, are we supposed to know all of them, or there are some that are like common that always come?
Yeah, I think that you should try your best to remember all of them. Let's come back to my word chart.
Okay, Daniel, I still have one more question.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the Article 26 Directive 2014-24 from the EU, how best can you like summarize it for me? Because when I read it in the notes, I just feel like it's a whole lot of things that I need to know, but I just need, like, maybe if you say it to me in your own wording, I can understand it better.
No, actually, you don't need to remember the regulation of public procurement in Europe. That's some kind of additional knowledge for you, but you don't need to remember them. Actually, in the exam, actually they do ask about the difference between the feature, different features of public procurement and private procurement.
Okay, thank you. Also, when are we doing M2?
Okay, we always do revision based on the suggestion from the student, and currently we are having some suggestion on doing L4M2 or L4M6. So we are considering about doing one of the two. So you should contact. Sorry, we should keep contact, and we will ask you before we decide the time and the module we review for you.
Okay, thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, thank you, Ivy. Ivy has some very curious mind, and she has a lot of questions. I hope that other people will have some learning spirit like her and rise up any question that you may have. Regarding the IB question on Incoterm, so I advise that you should all know all of them, but there are some Incoterm that is more important than the other. Two Incoterms that I suggest here is export and delivered duty paid, and sometimes the old Incoterm like DAT, as I write before. We should also remember this one, DAT. What is it? And DIP, what is their full name? Not just abbreviation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for attending this revision. Okay, is there a question from Alfred?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I just want to take you back to bill of trading. I was cut, So I didn't understand the time that we can use bill of trading.
Bill lading, not bill of trading.
Oh, sorry. Bill of lading, sorry.
Okay, when we are saying about bill of lading, it plays two roles. First, it is a legal document or the contract between the buyer or the seller with the shipping company, with the deliver. We can say that the shipping company as the deliver guy. And second, in import and export, bill of lading is sometimes it plays a role as the proof of title of the goods. So I'm saying about the two roles of bill of lading. First, about the contract. Essentially, bill of lading is the contract between the seller and the shipping company. They in that contract they will have the term for delivery, so insurance, and for the name, for the type of goods, as well as the quantity of the goods being shipped. Also, there are other information like the place of destination and the place of origin, and the name, the address, and the contact of the sender and the receiver and the shipping company. Also, there are some information on other issue like the term for shipping or the order from the seller or the buyer when the shipping company should release the goods. And in import and export, bill of lading also play as a proof for title of the goods. When we have bill of lading, and we can come to the port and ask the port manager to release the good, because we are showing we are holding the bill of lading. So it has double roles, and in the exam they tend to ask you about the roles of this type of documentation. I hope that my answer satisfies you, Alfred, and other students. Yeah. Do you want to ask me about any question regarding this topic or any other one? Okay, thank you, Mohammed Fatih. Okay, thank you, Alfred. So I think that I should end my revision here, and I hope that all of you will have a successful exam and revision. We will consider the revision of L4M2 or L4M6 in the next week, and we will notify you about the time and place for this revision. Thank you all for attending my revision, and I hope you have a beautiful Sunday. We are very sorry to host the revision on Sunday because, yeah, I know that there is a lot of requests on revision. And remember to support us by using our practice question on Udemy. We always provide the revision for free. See you again in another session. Thank you very much.